Welcome everybody that is joining us. I'm Casey Bray with the Auburn Area Chamber. We have been trying to set up these Zoom calls to be able to provide information to our businesses from the resources that we have locally here. Thank you for joining us. We'll also record this, and if anybody else would like to see this at another time, we'll be passing out that recording as well on our website, and then also the city. So thank you to the City of Auburn for setting up this call. We've been hearing a lot of concerns about the financial packages that are out there for our businesses to apply for. So we rallied together a few speakers today that we will bring out to just kind of speak to the knowledge that they have. One speaker is from our U.S. Small Business Administration, Cynthia Cowell. She is a public information officer. She will be discussing with you guys what she knows from the financial assistance packages that are offered to our businesses. So I will first turn it over to Cynthia.
My name is Cynthia Cowell. I am a public information officer with the U.S. Small Business Administration Office of Disaster Assistance. And I'm sure you have heard the news about the appropriations running out for the CARES Act. And there's not much I can tell you except that we have processed more than 14 years worth of loans in less than 14 days. And so until appropriations are refunded, we will not be able to accept any more applications. We will still process the applications that we have in the system, and this might be a good time to get your documentation together. If you haven't applied for an economic injury disaster loan, I'll tell you a little bit about them. These loans are to help a business with working capital who has suffered losses because of the coronavirus shutdown. These loans can be for up to $2 million, and they have a term of up to 30 years. The rate for businesses is 3.75%, and for private nonprofits, it's 2.75%. Along with the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, we also have what's called the EIDL Advance, and that is up to $10,000 for a business. This is based on the number of employees they have at $1,000 per employee, up to 10 employees. And so once the appropriations are settled, it's important that everybody go ahead and apply if they haven't yet. Now, I know a lot of people applied prior to the March 29th implementation of the streamlined process. If your application number starts with a 2, then you will need to go on and recertify in the new application, and that is at covid19relief.sba.gov. Now, this site is closed right now, but once appropriations are finalized, it will reopen. It's just temporarily closed right now. Applicants who have already submitted their applications and who have an application number that starts with a 3, then they are already in the system and will continue to process their applications on a first-come, first-served basis. If anybody has any questions, I'm willing to take them now. I think that the best route would be to contact our customer service center.
Okay.
And that number is 800-659-2955. And they can also send an email to our customer service center. It's disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. Now, I know that there's quite a holding time if you are calling to get information about your application. And at this time, we can only tell you that we have the application or we don't, and sometimes that's difficult. So if you have an application that starts with a 3, please know that you are in the system and we are working on your application. And there won't be any emails updating you. You need to check your bank account fairly regularly to find out when we deposit the emergency advance funds. And then once your file is assigned to a loan officer for processing on the rest of the loan amount, then you'll hear from us. Now, that up to $10,000 is a forgivable loan. And so it's important that you understand this is not a grant. It is not something that the government is giving away. This is a forgivable loan. And in order for it to be forgiven, there are certain steps that need to be taken as far as your documentation and what you are spending the money on. This is for payroll and rent expense right now. And so just keep track of what you spend and what you spend it on, and you'll be fine.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Cynthia, I have a question. You had mentioned that needed to be used for rent expense. Would mortgage or mortgage interest, would that qualify as an expense that could be forgiven?
I believe so, yes. And a good website to go to would be the SBA.gov website, and then there's a mustard-colored bar at the top of the page for COVID-19 relief. And you can look there and see all the programs that are available for businesses. We have a debt relief program. We have the EIDL program and the PPP program. Unfortunately, I can't really discuss the PPP program because that's administered through your lender. And so if you do have questions about that, you can contact your lender.
Hi, Cynthia. This is Taryn Hornby with the SBDC. How are you?
Oh, fine. How are you?
Good. Hey, I heard that your group was limiting the EIDL loans to $15,000 because of the shortfall at this time. Is that correct still?
Well, right now there is no appropriation, so we ran out of funds.
But I mean, the people that have applied, are you capping them at $15,000 right now?
I think their initial disbursement would be at $15,000 plus the $10,000, but the loans are approvable up to $2 million.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the other topic is the PPP loan that is out there. I originally asked Richard from Verity Credit Union, who's one of our great members here in the Auburn area, to be able to discuss how they're handling it, anything that they could give tips on how to deal with that with your actual bank. I have reached out to all of our banks in the area to find out if they're, and this is obviously prior to us finding out today that everybody is kind of maxed out, if there was banks still loaning. Most of them in the area were not, and that was within the last week. They were maxed out already. But there are other alternatives to maybe help with funding of businesses, or ways that we can reach out to our employees also to get them funded in different ways. So Richard is joining us, and then also John from, I haven't met John yet. John, thanks for being on the call. He is also a commercial loan officer from Verity Credit Union. So I will turn it over to both of you guys if you would like to discuss from the banking side of things. That would be wonderful.
Awesome. Can you hear me? Am I coming through? Yes, perfect. Thank you, Casey, and the City of Auburn. I have John on here. I'm going to have him go first to talk about the PP program, and then I will let you guys know about your employees and what emergency assistance loans we have out there for your employees. So, John, if you want to take it from here.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everybody, for having me. So, yeah, unfortunately, pretty early this morning, the 3P funds ran out, but as has been mentioned, it is anticipated that there will be additional funds supplementing the funds. So, I guess just kind of some pointers on how to go about it from here on out. If you were able to get funding through the 3P program, the big question that's kind of looming out there is how to get the loan forgiven. A a lot of borrowers are asking what's required. The SBA has said that it's going to be up to the lender to decide on the forgiveness and to collect the appropriate documentation and whatnot. So there isn't a set standard of documents that is already out there as far as what we are going to need to require. So it's just recommended that everything that you spend it on, which has to be payroll, rent, mortgage interest, and utilities, are the only acceptable expenses. 75% of it needs to be spent on salaries and wage expense, but the rest of it can be allocated amongst the other expenses. So keep any documentation that you can. If you need, there's a bunch of different resources online to help you catalog that information to provide to your financial institution that they'll be able to decipher and use for the forgiveness. So that's kind of the biggest thing for those who have already received approval through the SBA. Since there's going to be additional funds that are going to be available hopefully here in the near future, it's recommended to get everything that you can into your lender or to your depository institution while you'll probably be a little bit behind on the list. It's still good to get it in. That way lenders like us are going to continue to work on these loans and get them ready to be submitted to the SBA, so that once those additional funds are available, we can just go in and press submit. So be sure, if you are interested in the program, contact your primary depository institution, because most institutions are only accepting applications from their existing members or customers. And then, so get that stuff in as soon as you can. To help out the lender and to help out yourself, I would say get them as much information as possible right out the gate. Don't withhold information, and try to be as true and honest on the amount requested as possible. I understand everybody's trying to get as much funds as they can at this point during the situation, but once we go through and do our analysis, if there's issues with it, we have to come back and continue to go back and forth. It's only going to prolong the process and you end up further back on the list. So I would say getting things into your depository institution as soon as possible. As mentioned, most people are only dealing with their existing customers. So, contact your primary institution. If that doesn't work, there are workarounds at other institutions that you can look online on the SBA for.
This is Taryn Hornby with SBDC. Hi.
Hello.
When the borrower requests forgiveness, will that be initiated by the lender? Is that totally up to the borrower to take that upon themselves?
Yeah, so at least for us right now, when we fund the loan internally, we send a little synopsis to the borrower, just letting them know that they need to be tracking it. They have 8 weeks to spend the funds. So, and we also detailed the different documents and ways of tracking their expenses so that they know right out the gate how they will qualify for the forgiveness. And then at the 2-month mark, the funds, all the funds that have been spent need to be allocated or documented. And then we only have another 4 months for them to get it back to us and get the loan forgiven until the first payment is due. So, we will be corresponding with our members, but it's also up to the member to have some ownership over their responsibility to get it forgiven as well.
Hi, John. This is Josh with the City of Auburn. I have a question.
Yeah.
So the funds through the CARES Act being exhausted, are those? Is that tracked through by funds that have already been distributed, or is that based on the applications that have been received and approved?
Yeah. So it's based on the funds that have been approved within the SBA system. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've been dispersed by the financial institution. We have 10 days from the time that we get the funding approval from the SBA to get it funded, excuse me, to get it funded within our institution and kind of communicate that to the SBA that we have funded it. So we have 10 days after the time that the SBA has approved and funded on their side until we can, otherwise we have to go in and get it reapproved. So yeah, they're all dibsed essentially.
Okay. And then second question is, you'd mentioned, or you sound pretty confident that there will become more funds available in the future. one, I guess, do you feel confident that that is in fact the case? And then two, if so, how quickly do you think that that would happen?
Well, I don't ever expect it to happen too quickly. But I hope sooner rather than later. There's actually, we'll be on a call tomorrow with some members of Congress as far as what the true progress of it is, and see if there's more of a guess timeline. I think that I feel pretty confident that there will be some sort of funds being appropriated. I mean, there's been discussions of anywhere from 100 billion to 250 billion. But there has been different industries that are now going to be able to access the funds going forward. So the program will be opened up a little bit. So it's expected that it will be drained. And especially since, any financial institution that wanted access to the program now probably has it, it's expected that those funds will dry up a lot quicker than this initial round.
Okay. And so we've all heard stories, and there have been plenty of news articles out there that certain lending institutions and banks have just stopped taking applications. But it sounds like even though the funds have been exhausted, Verity is still at least willing to take applications to put them in queue.
Yeah. So right now we only have the program opened up to our current membership, just because the amount of documentation and work that would go into opening up new accounts and whatnot would really hinder our ability to satisfy our member applications. But from our standpoint, is best case scenario, the funds come through and we've got a bunch queued up that we can satisfy, people can pay their employees. Worst case scenario is we're right where we started. So I'd rather put in the effort to possibly satisfy their payroll than to just kind of sit back and watch.
This is Taryn again. Have you heard anything about, let's say that the client only uses 65% for payroll instead of 75%? Does that mean they're denied forgiveness, or is it a graduated forgiveness? Have you heard that, what the answer to that is yet?
No, but when they kind of elaborated a bit more on the fact that it's going to be up to the financial institution to grant forgiveness, I think it was them saying, okay, it's in your court, do what you think is right. This whole program has been like building an airplane while it's running down the runway. And I think that they're continuing to put it in the hands of the financial institutions so that we're able to make that decision, and the SBA is allowed to continue to forgive the loans. There's still a lot unknown, I guess, but I don't, these percentages are, they call it a rule of thumb rather than the law. So I don't know. It's a lot unknown still. We're still kind of figuring a lot of it out, but I don't see, as long as you're maintaining 75% of the payroll in which you applied for, I think that it would be forgivable.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate you being on this call.
Not a problem.
And thank you, Richard, for rounding John up for us to answer those questions. I appreciate it. Also, just to let you guys know, I will be on our website putting out some online resources that I have for how you can maybe apply online and get that process going if your bank is not taking applications. As I know my bank currently isn't taking applications anymore. So I will put those on our website. I can't speak to them. I haven't used those lenders, but at least I can provide those resources as well. Richard, if you don't mind speaking a little bit about, from a local level, loan opportunities for maybe employees and all of us, honestly, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you. So first and foremost, I would, have your employees reach out to their financial institutions to start having conversations if they feel that they're going to be late. I know one of the things that we're implementing is skip-a-pay for those that have auto loans right now, and putting it into position to start working on whether it's 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days out for them. And even those members that may have did a skip-a-payment in the last 90 days, we're making exceptions for them, and also looking at what is the next 30 days is going to look like for them. So first and foremost, I would say have them reach out to their lender, no matter if it's their checking account or their credit cards or auto loans or mortgages as well, and start having those conversations. They're really open to seeing what they need to do to make those modifications. Right now, for us, we're doing, loans as small as $500 up to $2,500 at a 2.99 interest rate. In the first 90 days, there's no payment on it. We're looking at alternate sources of income for those to qualify on it. And so we're making it as easy as possible for those in need to be able to have a shelter in place and also be able to make some payments and also get food in the house or medical assistance if need be.
Richard, this is Josh with the City of Auburn. So Verity's Skip a Pay program that you were talking about, is that going to have any bearance on the customer's credit score?
No, right now we're not reporting credit scores due to what's going on right now. So we are looking at every option to make it as a smooth transaction as possible. Plus, also keep in mind that credit will not be impacted during that time. So if we were to do a modification of a loan over 90 days or more, that will not be reported.
And the other programs you were talking about, you said you're looking at alternate sources of income as well as some other things. Two questions on that. One, are you guys looking at credit scores for that potential borrower? And then two, is it just a personal loan, or is there any sort of collateral attached to it?
It's going to be a personal loan. And yes, we're going to check at credit scores, but we're looking at the willingness to pay back. So we're looking at unemployment as income, also looking at future income as well. So it's not your typical guideline of credit score, income for being an employee. Right now in these times here, we're looking at how do we help a member be able to pay their bills.
I know you can really only truly speak to Verity in your organization. Have you heard, are the other banking institutions doing similar programs, or have you heard?
Yes, there are other institutions out there that are doing similar programs, putting in place to make sure that each one of their customer/members are able to make their payments. And if they're not, how can we build a plan to make sure that they're on track? I know it's something that every institution is looking at. It's going to be up to each one of your employees to reach out and start having those conversations. They don't want to wait to their 30 days or 60 days late. These are conversations you want to start having right now, and every institution is looking at how do they continue to keep people feeling that they can make a payment or work out a modification for them.
So Richard, this is Doug with the City of Auburn. Thanks again for being on the call. This is a little off track from a business question, but believe it or not, I've fielded a number of calls from private citizens today with the stimulus checks coming out to folks personally. Of course, they're wondering where their $1,200 is. And I was just curious, through your institution, have you seen any activity of the deposits coming through for folks through your network?
Yes. As of yesterday, we started to see deposits coming in, so they are receiving those. We also had a couple people today that came in to make withdrawals because they were able to get some funds in.
Okay. Do you hear any back story on that as far as any problems? A number of the folks that called that I took calls from today, they said they were getting the response that it couldn't be determined if they were eligible or something like that. I didn't know if that was just a system overload or what that meant.
No, because right now what I'm finding out is that it depends on when you did your taxes, where did you get your deposit at? The only thing that I ran into is someone closed an account over the last couple months. The deposit was most likely going to go into that account, and now we either had to reroute it or they have to find another method of be able to get that deposit. But it's typically going into the account where you received your return from previous year.
Okay. I think it was the system that was opened up for people to add account information. Folks that maybe paid taxes last year didn't receive a refund. And so that was the system they were having problems with.
Which is interesting because I know for us, we have someone that comes in and pretty much every financial institution have someone or manual process that accepts incoming ACH deposits in there. So with that institution, I can't say that something happened there, but typically it goes in and somebody pushes the button, especially for credits that are coming in.
Yeah. Okay. That was just a hot question this morning, obviously, from folks.
This is Taryn again with SBDC. As businesses possibly run into a little trouble, are you guys less hesitant to put them into special assets? And if you determine that they're in the special asset group, what's the best way they can deal with the uncertainty of the future?
I think that would be one that, John, you mean on the business side or on the personal side?
On the business side, please.
Yeah, that would be something, John, and I think John had to drop off here, would be able to speak to. The main thing I would just say for small businesses is to have the conversation with your lender. As long as you're having the conversation with your lender and showing that you're willing to work through this, then they're going to be a little bit more forgiving and work out how do they continue to do business with you. It's when we're not able to get a hold of you and not able to have a conversation to understand what's your story and help you prepare for what's coming in the future is where we start to look at other things that we may have to, other steps that we may have to take.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions maybe for Richard on the financial side of things? If not, we can go ahead and just end the call, but we will also reach out to everybody, letting them know about a call that we'll be having next Thursday with Waste Management. More details to come about that. Trying to keep up on things that are going on in the Auburn area that might be a resource for businesses and also our community. But I want to thank Richard for joining this call, and Cynthia and John as well. Any additional questions that we might be able to answer as a team that are sitting on the Zoom call today?
I would say if just a one-off, if anybody wants to have a conversation, you can reach out. Just look at Verity here in Auburn, the branch here. Reach out. We can have a conversation and answer any additional questions that you may have.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, Casey, this is Taryn at the SBDC. I would just like to offer a little bit of encouragement to the businesses. I tried to summarize a little bit of information. They can work on the attitude, except this is the new normal. One day at a time, be very flexible, be positive, be empathetic, be human, have a team spirit with your employees as businesses start to reopen. And the most valuable resources right now are your employees and your loyal customers. Financially, cash is king. Stop the bleeding, deal with layoffs, reduced hours, and inform yourself about the government assistance. And then in the new world, improve your service and quality to the utmost, customize your product to your clients, innovate to meet the new demand, more e-commerce, market, pay attention to the feedback from your customers, and certainly keep in touch with your customers. And as the gentleman said, keep in touch with your lenders. Thank you.
It looks like the buy local is on the screen. Did the city want to discuss anything?
I just wanted to throw it up there real quick, Casey, just a quick update. Reminder to all the local businesses that have Auburn business licenses, please get on your account. It takes 30 seconds if you don't have it set up. Put your company information in there so that you're easily found. We have changed up the Buy Local website to bring up essential businesses, restaurants, grocery stores. They're very simple one-button searches that we're maintaining every day. So there's every grocery store, drugstore in town that's open. And We've over doubled our advertising budget on this. We're running at a rate right now that we should hit about 3 million impressions on our buy local digital marketing campaign for the month of April. And so we are driving activity. And all the restaurants, I think 3 more opened. We're up to 117. A couple days ago, it was 114. So we've had 3 more restaurants open up now for takeout. And here's a list of everyone that is open as of today. So take advantage of it, keep your money local, and help out your neighbor.
Great, thank you. And if anybody ever has any questions or topics that they want to see on some Zoom calls or things that we can kind of help resource for not only our businesses, but also our community, please feel free to reach out to the Auburn Chamber. You can always reach me at Kacie, K-A-C-I-E, at auburnareawa.org. Thank you again for everybody for joining us today. Thanks, Josh, for setting this up as well.